1A is the first proposition on the ballot that we say no to, and they want to spend what would be $20 billion, because when they talk about bonds is borrowing money, and they want to borrow $9 billion, but of course there's a lot of interest on that.
And you should see the way it's described. By the way, it's $9.95 billion, so if we round, it's really 10. And the way they word this, oh my God, to provide Californians a safe, convenient, affordable, and reliable alternative to driving and high gas prices, to provide good-paying jobs and improve California's economy while reducing air pollution, global warming, greenhouse gases, and our dependence on foreign oil, shall $9.95 billion in bonds be issued to establish a clean, efficient, high-speed train service linking Southern California, Sacramento, San Joaquin Valley, and the San Francisco Bay Area. Wow. So that's leading, isn't it?
Well, I guess it's true.
And you and I know the history of this. When people see the word bond and then safe, convenient, reliable, the only thing they didn't put in here is the children.
Bond is borrowing. And when you borrow $10 billion over 30 years, you've got to pay $20 billion back.
Yeah,
and we are borrowed out. Remember that Schwarzenegger could not find any money to borrow on the open market because we're so tapped out that he had to sell bonds to you, the taxpayers. People have been sending him money in return for an interest rate.
One of the culprits that we discovered with this whole budget deficit fiasco is that you people voted for propositions that lock us into this kind of spending. This is $647 million per year we're going to have to pay out on this bond. It is not free. And I heard a commercial for this, John, and I like to say, there's no tax increase involved. Vote for Proposition 1A.
You know what? This is what leads to proposed tax increases. One of the reasons Schwarzenegger is pushing a sales tax is to cover all the borrowing that you people have voted yes on. You can't keep voting yes and believe a commercial that says there's no tax increase involved. Yes, there is eventually. You can't borrow forever without raising taxes to pay for it.
We're going to talk now to Joe Vranich. Joe Vranich is the former CEO of the High Speed Rail Association, and he's argued in favor of high-speed trains in this state in his book, Super Trains. But this proposition, he is not a fan of.
Let's get Joe Vranich on. Joe, how you doing?
I am fine, gentlemen. How are you?
We're good. Explain to us the beauty of a high-speed rail line that would go up and down the coast.
Sure. I've promoted high-speed rail for many years, so that's easy to do. Trains are fun to ride. They're kind of romantic. Everybody knows that Edna St. Vincent Millay poem, "My heart is warm with the friends I make. There isn't a train I wouldn't take," blah, blah, blah. And, you get through the snow pretty well. I'm from back east, and you can be comfortable. So there are a lot of good things about it. And there could be a decent high-speed rail plan for California, but the one that the voters have before them now is literally the worst rail I have ever seen, and I have been involved in commuter rail, regular rail, high-speed rail, etc. for 39 years, and this plan and the people behind it have no credibility at all.
What's wrong with this plan?
Well, there's a lot that's wrong with it. It's, for one thing, there's no train that will perform the way they say it will. For a train to link Los Angeles with San Francisco in 2 hours and 40 minutes, that would be the fastest train in the world.
200 miles an hour or something?
Well, no, the top speed would be 220, which, by the way, that part is possible.
Don't the Japanese have something that fast?
Yeah, they do. But it's not the top speed that counts, it's the average speed. And these planners are claiming that you're going to go along at an average of 200 miles per hour between Gilroy, garlic capital of California, and Palmdale. Gentlemen, that is impossible. Nobody in the world operates that extensive distance at that speed.
Now, how would that be a cow on the tracks or something?
Why couldn't you do it?
Well, you can't do it because, for one thing, this route has a lot of curves in it. It almost looks as if it's been built in a zigzag fashion to help, I presume, land speculators, because otherwise I don't know why they would pick a route like this. Moreover, California has what places like France does not have, and that is mountains. So we've got to cross mountain ranges to get into San Francisco and Los Angeles. So there you go.
You can't have a train going 200 miles up a mountain.
What would be the more likely maximum or average speed then?
Well, I could tell you that in France, the top average speed is 174 miles an hour, but that's only like a third of the distance between Gilroy and Palmdale. And there's a Japanese bullet train that goes 159 miles an hour, but that's only for a short stretch.
Wait, you're confusing me. Why are you mentioning Palmdale? You mean Palmdale down here?
Yeah, Palmdale down here. See, that's where the newest infrastructure would be. Between Palmdale and L.A., they plan to mesh these trains in with Metrolink, Amtrak, freight trains. That's a whole new issue. That's a whole new safety issue.
Oh, you're not kidding after what just happened with Metrolink a month ago.
So they would build it Palmdale north to Gilroy?
Right. And
Gilroy is where exactly?
Gilroy is south of San Jose, and the all-new infrastructure would actually go into San Jose before they start sharing tracks again with other trains.
And then from San Jose to San Francisco would be on existing tracks?
It would be on existing track, and there are people up in Atherton and Menlo Park that there's just a huge uproar up there because what is now a two-track railroad through town would become this huge, elevated, wide, four-track system built like a Berlin Wall separating the community. So this isn't going to be easy. This is not going to be easy to do.
All right, so your first objection is the super train isn't going to, this high-speed train isn't going to run as fast as they're claiming.
That's right.
All right, how long do you think it really would take to go
from L.A. to San Francisco?
An hour longer.
So it's going to be
3.5 or 3:40.
Yeah, about 3:40.
3:40. So I mean, because the longer it takes, the less it's an option as opposed to flying.
Right, and keep in mind, the 3:40 is for a nonstop train. Once you start adding stops, it's going to be more like 4 hours, 4.5 hours.
Oh, they would do a number of stops? I thought the point was to get people from San Francisco to L.A. quickly rather than take a plane.
One of the myths being perpetrated by the California High-Speed Rail Authority is there are going to be a bunch of nonstop trains between L.A. and San Francisco, and yet those very kind of trains have failed in most places in the world that have high-speed rail lines. I know. I've met the presidents of those companies. I've ridden the trains.
What do you mean by failed? They didn't get enough passengers?
The nonstop trains have failed. They didn't get enough passengers, so they took those schedules off and replaced them with trains that make local stops along the way.
Right. I mean, how did they determine the market for L.A. to San Francisco nonstop? I mean, there's plenty of flights between San Francisco and L.A.
But you have to make it quite a bit cheaper than the flights, and as we talked about, the time factor.
Well, you know, you bring up an interesting point, and one thing I object to is their grossly high ridership estimates. They're claiming they're going to carry as many as, get this, 117 million people a year, and yet flight traffic on airplanes has declined between L.A. and San Francisco in the last 7 years. So how do they get those projections? Worse, those projections are so phony. I testified before a Senate committee in Sacramento last week, and I told them that is science fiction. No system in the world produces that much of a ridership.
Well, that would have everyone in the state of California
traveling how many times?
3 times.
Oh. Yeah, at least.
At least 3, maybe 3.5. I mean, that's crazy.
Did they have a projection as to what the fare would be for a nonstop train trip from L.A. to San Francisco on this high-speed rail?
I hope you're sitting down. They claim that in 2030 you can go from L.A. to San Francisco for $55, and I got to tell you that we cannot believe these people because that is 1/7 what Amtrak charges today between New York and Washington, D.C. These people have no credibility whatsoever.
New York to Washington costs $350?
No, it depends on whether you're going first class, whether you're going coach, and I forgot I think that's a business class comparison.
Okay.
And by the way, that's also a train mile comparison.
So, all right, I mean, these guys aren't idiots. They know they're lying in their projections in order to gin up support for this.
Oh, of course they are. I have to tell you, gentlemen, this is more than about trains. This state is in huge trouble, as you know. When I was in that Senate hearing last week, a senator from Bakersfield, Roy Ashburn, asked, you aren't going to believe this, he asked Quentin Kopp, the chairman of the High-Speed Rail Authority, why you people do not have the business plan issued prior to the election, which you are required to do by law. The chairman of the authority lashed out at the senator, yelled at him. I was in Washington, D.C. for 25 years. I've testified before Congress many times. I have never seen a senator who was just doing his job, and that's what Senator Ashburn was. I've never seen him treated with such contempt as I did by this authority.
And who was this guy again? And who is this guy yelling at Ashburn?
Quentin Kopp.
He's a former senator from San Francisco.
Yeah, he's in the legislature.
And what does he do now?
He's chairman of the California High-Speed Rail Authority.
Which is another good question. Do you know that thing's been around for 12 years and they spent $60 million already on pre-construction activities?
That's
for
right.
What?
Well, we have a bunch of studies. Hey, here's the latest.
We don't have a high-speed rail. It's been around 12 years.
The latest argument is we need to pass 1A because it'll create jobs. No, it won't, because if the construction starts, it's not going to be for years from now. If 1A passes, the jobs that are going to be created are going to be by people who do studies in Washington, D.C., New York, Boston, Europe, and even in Japan, only a few in California. So this whole jobs thing is a hoax.
All right.
Joe, we appreciate you talking to us. That was excellent stuff. And again, vote no on Proposition 1A, the whole thing about the high-speed rail, as you heard from Joe Vranich. He is a former CEO of the High-Speed Rail Association, a big fan of high-speed rail, but he says this proposition should go nowhere. It's messed up.
All right. We'll continue, John.